in the previous lectures, we studied about the age of Chaucer, the characters in the prologue to the Canterbury Tales. In today's lecture, I'm going to talk about the themes and style of Geoffrey Chaucer in the text Prologue to the Canterbury Tales. So this text and a poetic piece written by Geoffrey Chaucer is a social document. This is something that I told you in the previous lectures. It is bringing out the moral and social identity of several classes. The idea of pilgrimage and the belief in God, which was prevalent in those times, whether it was the higher class or the lower class, is quite evident from the kind of pilgrimage that these 30 pilgrims have undertaken. This includes the host as well. They have undertaken, which also is reflecting a sense of unity, a sense of fellowship, friendship, brings out certain human relationships, and also is emphasizing on the importance of company and how when they are in a company in the inn, how they decide to talk about themselves and also to narrate the stories. As they talk about themselves, they are portraying the age to which they belong. They are also bringing out the virtues and vices in their characters. They are bringing out the corruption in the religious order, the corruption in the church. They are also bringing out the kind of courtly love as we see in the characters of the knight and his son, the squire. Materialism and greed, which is exemplified by a number of characters in the prologue. Now, if you just try to analyze the prologue after having read this, you would understand it as a journey, and this journey is from Tabard Inn to Thomas Becket's shrine, and it also metaphorically refers to the journey of human beings from earth to heaven. And what comes in between our journey of the human beings from earth to heaven? Several vices, several evils, several allurements, temptations come our way. So in a way, as these pilgrims move from the Tabard Inn to the Canterbury Shrine, they are purging themselves of these impurities and the vices that they are carrying because of the influences of the social group that they belong to, or because of the practices, socio-economic condition of the time. So whether they are showing themselves as simple, self-effacing, pure human beings, or they have been shown to us by Chaucer as materialistic and greedy. They are bringing out the dominant traits that were prevalent in that society. As we talk about the traits that are prevalent in that society, because the characters are real characters, and the characters are bringing out not only the individual characteristics of a person, but also some universal traits and some kind of typical traits. So the portraits that Chaucer is bringing before us are so effective and realistic that they are adding, the traits are adding a distinctive flavor to the personal details that are being presented by Chaucer. So it was Chaucer's aim to delineate the characters, suppress his own traits of personality, so that he could make an objective characterization of all these people that he mentions in the prologue. So there is also an element of idealization the actual description of characters. I told you about that, whether it is knighthood or the clergy people that he's talking about, where he tries to bring out some kind of an idealization in the characters. So, commenting on the range of fullness of the characters in Chaucer, John Dryden says, and I quote, this is within quotes, "He must have been a man of a most wonderful, comprehensive nature, because it has been truly observed that he has taken into the compass of his Canterbury tales various manners, humours, and the whole English nation of the age." So even Laws, a critic, says, Chaucer's ultimate glory is not in his finished craftsmanship, but in the power by virtue of which he creates through speech, action, the living characters before us. So he is amply bringing before us the microcosm of that society, and whatever he is, every character, has some point that he or she is driving us to some kind of a theme. And I have already mentioned the themes which you can go through, and also you can go through the study material as well for a greater understanding of all these facts. Coming to the symbols, now he begins the prologue with the springtime, and springtime is the time of rejuvenation. I spoke about it at length in my previous lecture. It is also a time for human beings to get spiritually rejuvenated, and that is why this is a kind of journey. I just spoke about this, a journey from earth to heaven, or this journey from the inn to the shrine. The clothing, I hope you remember while I was reading a few excerpts from the prologue, he has paid so much of attention to the clothing of several characters, and with a great consummate skill he has struck a delicate balance between the universal and the individual traits that he is presenting, the class that these people were belonging to, and also some individuality added to it. A critic remarks, the journal traits would have turned the picture into a frozen symbol, an uninteresting abstraction. So more individual traits would have confused it by depriving it of the kind of identification that is required. So every description, is bringing the traits of that particular character, and also in a very dramatic way he has characterized whether he is comparing or whether he is contrasting. He has evolved complex characters, their physiognomy. I told you in the previous lecture, when he's talking about special characteristic feature, a broad forehead, or the nose, the kind of singing that happens through nose, or someone being very fat and just blowing out all the hinges of the doors that he is passing by. So he has used all sorts of techniques to portray his characters in the most realistic manner. We can say that he has made use of everything, whether it is realism, irony, satire, but whatever he is trying to say ironically or satirically about a class or a particular character, he has a comic vision, because that vision is bringing before us the good and the bad elements that are there in the society of the times, and also the individual and the typical characters, the traits of the characters are bringing before us a distinct character, a character that is very evolved, or a character that has to evolve a lot. because in his presentation of a band of characters or pilgrims, he has no artifice about it, and he has excluded the highest and the lowest, but there are two extremes which are already there. So if I were to sum up the kind of characters from different walks of life, it won't be wrong to include in the warlike section the knight, squire and the yeoman. In the liberal characters would be the sergeant at law or the lawyer, the doctor, clerk and the poet Chaucer himself. To the agricultural walk of life, ploughman, miller, reeve and franklin. Commercial walk of life, the merchant, the sailor, the shipman. Industry and trade, wife of Bath, weaver, dyer and the tapister. Then some people from the provision trade, manciple, cook, host. The secular clergy, parson and summoner, the monastic order, the monk, prioress and the friar. So when he is presenting all these characters before us, he actually is not giving all these in a hierarchy. I mean, these are not hierarchically arranged. Here and there, he's mixing the social groups and classes, which is again on purpose a very secular and a democratic way of presentation of the characters. He uses a very realistic approach, sympathetic approach in portraying the complexities of life and also the complexity of the characters. Natural surroundings and natural objects also find space in the poetry of Chaucer. So if we talk about his sense of humor, again he had this great sense of humor when he was making these pictorial descriptions of specific characters. So he is showing us the reeve with thin legs, Franklin, weakness for a sharp sauce. We have the squire's locks that he is describing. Then again, when he is describing the monk and the friar, he does not treat them with disdain, but he fathoms deep into the tricks that they were making use of to dupe the people, to deceive the people. His sense of humor, observes Lowell, is born out of his keen observation and generous sympathy for a particular character that he is describing. So the genial sympathy is the quintessence of his humor, and though he is making use of irony and satire, but there is a purpose of this poet's lash, because the poet is trying to surface all sorts of vices that were there in the society of that time. And what time was it? This was the 14th century. His humor is quite natural and spontaneous. His humor is not the result of a deliberation or a calculated effort, but it is a spontaneous expression of the inner self. Walter Raleigh observes about Chaucer that his joy is chronic and irrepressible. So the humor again is all predominant in his work, and Kazamiya observes Chaucer's humor is not a momentary gleam, a lucky accident, or at best an incipient disposition gathering strength into some distinct flashes. For the first time in the history of English literature, perhaps of all literatures, Chaucer evinced humor as the soul and the essence of an artist and his art. Furthermore, Kazamiya remarks, Chaucer's inmost self is saturated with humor, and in that habit of mind, he truly moves and his beings. So he in a very vivid manner, he has portrayed all the characters. His humors is marked by tolerance, charity and forgiveness and sympathy for his victims. Even in the portraits of the pardoner and the summoner, there seems to be a complete disapproval of their ways of life. There is not the least touch of personal feeling and never a trace of anger or anguish, which was quite common to a few writers and poets who were writing about such evil or corrupt characters. So he maintains that kind of a poise while portraying the characters. Satire in his writing is generally understood as an indignation, but it is tempered with humor. It combines with the notion of ridicule, but has no intention to harm any erring human being. It is just that, he is painting life, he is trying to mirror the society of the time, and his satire on religion probably is trying to draw our attention to the fact that the torch bearers or the leaders of the class of religion who have to show the right path and lead people to righteousness, if they indulge in wrong practices, if they are not disciplined, then what will the society be like? So, all in all, his irony is also of some kind of mildness and geniality. There are ample examples of irony in the prologue when he is presenting the prioress's portrait. She is portrayed as a heroine of some romance, but again, when she is wearing that brooch which has those words, Amor vincit omnia, love conquereth all, he is making an ironical statement about someone who actually is devoted to religion should be wearing such things. So again, when he is describing the monk or he is describing the lawyer, he says lawyer was the busiest man in England, and yet he seemed busier than he was, for gold in physic is a cordial, therefore he loved gold in special. So whatever he was doing to amass wealth. It was not for justice, it was not for the vulnerable victims of injustice. Similarly, irony is quite evident in the portrayal of the much married wife of Bath, who had 5 husbands, and she enjoyed happiness with all the 5 husbands and was quite prepared for the 6th one. So the humorous intent in the portrayal of Parson, the plowman, and there is a kind of an equal mix of satire and an idealization in the descriptions of the characters in the prologue. He is ridiculing the folly and hypocrisy, but he is never being bitter. So this is something that you have to remember, and also when you are asked about his style of writing, it requires a special mention about the geniality of his satire and irony. So because of all these qualities of his writings, he is hailed as the father of English literature, and he is also known to be the precursor to drama and novel. The kind of characterization and the plots that he brings, vivifies them and brings before the readers is a step to the next writing, the next genre of writing, which is, say, drama and the novel. So his superb power of characterization is the reason why he is referred to as the precursor to drama. And again, he in a very simple language. His language is simple, is easily comprehensible, and it is quite objective and impersonal outlook that he is presenting. And through his speech, or through the speech of the characters, the action of the characters, his own description about their physical features and the way of their dressing, he brings before us characters which are individual as well as typical. I hope you enjoyed reading the prologue and would be reading more about this. You have a prescribed list of suggested readings in the study material, so you can make use of that in order to understand the aspects, themes, the style, the characters in a better way, which enables you to write good answers for your examination. Thank you very much.